Become the person who already has it. A Deep Manifestation Journey, Part 1. There is a version of your life that you have not experienced yet. A version where you wake up feeling different. You think differently. You react differently. You carry yourself differently. You no longer wake up with the same worries, the same limitations, the same expectations, or the same emotional patterns that have followed you for years. And perhaps the most important question is this: who would you have to become to live that life? Not what would you have to get, not who would have to appear, not what circumstances would have to change, but who would you have to become? Because sometimes we spend years asking life to change, while continuing to be the same person who created our current circumstances. We want a new relationship, but we continue thinking from loneliness. We want abundance, but we continue thinking from lack. We want confidence, but we continue rehearsing every reason why we are not enough. We want peace, but we continue returning to the same emotional patterns. And then we wonder why tomorrow looks so much like yesterday. Your life may change when you change your circumstances, but your circumstances can also begin to change when you change the way you meet your life. And that begins inside. Think about your average day. You wake up, you reach for your phone, you check the time, you think about what happened yesterday. You remember what you need to do today. You think about the people you have to deal with. You think about your responsibilities. You move through familiar rooms. You follow familiar routines. You interact with familiar people. And without even realizing it, you begin to enter the same emotional state you experienced yesterday. The same thoughts, the same reactions, the same worries, the same expectations, the same behaviors, and, eventually, the same results. This is one of the most powerful ideas in the material you shared. When the patterns of thought, behavior, and emotion remain unchanged, we tend to reproduce familiar experiences. And there is nothing wrong with familiarity. Familiarity makes life easier. It allows you to drive without thinking about every movement. It allows you to perform tasks automatically. It gives your brain efficiency. But there is a hidden danger. You can become so familiar with your current identity that you mistake it for who you truly are. You may say, "This is just who I am. I've always been this way. I can't change. This is my personality. This is just my life." But what if those statements are not your identity? What if they are simply patterns you have practiced for a very long time? What if the person you call me is partly a collection of memories, habits, beliefs, and emotional reactions? And if that is true, then perhaps you can begin to create a new version of yourself. Your personality is expressed through the way you think, the way you behave, and the way you feel. And if those three things remain almost identical every day, your experience of life is likely to remain familiar too. So ask yourself, honestly, what have I been rehearsing every day? Have you been rehearsing confidence or fear? Have you been rehearsing gratitude or frustration? Have you been rehearsing possibility or limitation? Have you been rehearsing the future, or have you been rehearsing the past? Because every day, whether you realize it or not, you are practicing being someone. The question is, who are you practicing becoming? Maybe you have spent years thinking about something that happened to you. Someone hurt you. Someone disappointed you. Someone rejected you. Someone betrayed your trust. Maybe you lost something. Maybe you failed. Maybe you were told that you weren't good enough. Maybe life simply didn't turn out the way you expected. And the event itself may be over. But sometimes the emotional reaction continues. You remember the event, and you feel the emotion again. You tell the story, and the emotion returns. You imagine what you should have said, and the emotion returns. You think about what they did, and once again, your body responds. This is why the past can become more than a memory. It can become a pattern. And when a memory is repeatedly connected to the same emotional response, it can begin to influence the way you see yourself and the world. You begin to say, I am angry, I am unlucky, I am rejected, I am not worthy, I am always struggling, I am just not that kind of person. Notice something. The sentence begins with, I am. And every time you define yourself in this way, you strengthen the story of who you believe yourself to be. So perhaps the first step toward creating a new reality is not creating something outside of you. Perhaps the first step is becoming aware of what is already happening inside. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a slow breath and ask yourself, what emotions have I been carrying for too long? Don't judge the answer. Just notice. Maybe it is fear. Maybe resentment. Maybe guilt. Maybe insecurity. Maybe disappointment. Maybe the feeling that you are behind in life. Maybe the feeling that something is always missing. Whatever it is, simply observe it. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to hate it. You don't have to pretend it isn't there. Awareness comes first, because you cannot consciously change a pattern you never notice. Now, imagine your life as a road. Behind you is everything you have already experienced. Every success, every mistake, every relationship, every disappointment, every lesson, every version of yourself you have already been. That road is your history. But in front of you is something different. The road has not been written yet. And somewhere between the old you and the future you, there is a space. A place where you don't know exactly who you are yet. This is the uncomfortable part of change. You are no longer completely comfortable being the old version of yourself, but you have not yet become comfortable being the new one. You are between identities, and that can feel strange. You may wonder, why don't I feel like myself? Why does this feel uncomfortable? Why am I suddenly questioning everything? Because the old version of you was familiar, even if it wasn't happy, even if it wasn't healthy, even if it wasn't fulfilling. It was familiar, and the human mind often prefers the familiar over the unknown. But your future cannot be built entirely from what is familiar. At some point, you have to enter the unknown. Imagine standing at the edge of a river. On one side is your old identity, the person who reacts automatically, the person who repeats the same stories, the person who expects the same outcomes, the person who waits for external circumstances to give permission to feel happy. And on the other side is the person you want to become. Calm, confident, abundant, focused, loving, disciplined, free, grateful, powerful, present, The river between them is change, and you have to cross it. But crossing it doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means making a different choice when the old choice feels easier. It means responding differently when the old reaction appears. It means noticing the thought and choosing another thought, feeling the emotion and refusing to let it control your entire day, seeing the old pattern and remembering, I don't have to continue it. This is where your transformation begins. Not when everything outside changes, but when you stop allowing everything outside to determine everything inside. Imagine waking up tomorrow, before opening your phone, before checking your messages, before thinking about yesterday. You sit quietly, you take a breath, and you ask, who do I want to be today? Not, what do I have to do? Not, what problems do I have? Not, what went wrong yesterday? But, who do I choose to be? Maybe your answer is, I choose to be calm. I choose to be grateful. I choose to be courageous. I choose to believe in possibility. I choose to act like the person I am becoming. And then you ask, how would that person think? How would they walk? How would they speak? How would they handle pressure? How would they respond to criticism? How would they treat themselves? How would they treat other people? How would they respond when something doesn't go according to plan? These questions are powerful because they move manifestation away from simply wishing and toward embodiment. You don't just want a new future. You want to become compatible with that future. If you want a life filled with peace, practice peace. If you want abundance, practice thinking beyond constant lack. If you want love, practice becoming someone capable of giving and receiving love. If you want confidence, begin behaving like someone who trusts themselves. If you want freedom, stop repeatedly rehearsing the identity of someone who is powerless. Your future self is not created in one dramatic moment. It is created through thousands of small decisions. One thought, one reaction, one action, one day, and then another. This is why learning matters. When you encounter a new idea, you create an opportunity to see yourself differently. A new perspective can interrupt an old pattern. A new question can create a new possibility. A new understanding can lead to a new choice, and a new choice can lead to a new behavior. A new behavior can create a new experience, and a new experience can create a new emotional state. Then, that new emotional state can influence the way you think. A new cycle begins. This is the opposite of living on autopilot. Instead of thought gives reaction, gives familiar experience, gives familiar emotion, gives familiar thought, you begin creating. New thought gives new choice, gives new behavior, gives new experience, gives new emotion, gives new identity. That is transformation. Now, let's take this deeper. Imagine that you have a dream. Maybe it is financial freedom. Maybe it is a beautiful relationship. Maybe it is your own business. Maybe it is traveling the world. Maybe it is a peaceful home. Maybe it is becoming physically strong. Maybe it is simply waking up every morning without the weight you have carried for years. Whatever your dream is, there is something important you must understand. Your dream is not only about the destination, it is about the person who lives there. Ask yourself, who is the person who already lives that life? How does that person think? What does that person believe? What does that person no longer tolerate? What habits do they have? What emotions have become natural to them? What do they do when life becomes difficult? What do they focus on? What do they expect from themselves? This is where visualization becomes powerful. Not because you are trying to escape reality, but because you are giving your mind a direction. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. You wake up in the morning. Look around. Where are you? What does the room look like? What does the morning light feel like? What do you hear? What is different about your life? But most importantly, what is different about you? Notice the way you carry yourself. Notice your posture. Notice your breathing. Notice your confidence. Notice your emotional state. You are not waiting for someone to tell you that you are enough. You know it. You are not desperately searching for evidence that life is going to work out. You have learned to trust yourself. You are not living from yesterday. You are living from intention. Take a moment and feel that version of yourself, not as something impossible, not as someone completely separate from you, but as a direction, a possibility, a version of you that can be practiced today. Now imagine something happens. Someone criticizes you. The old you would react immediately. But this time, you pause, you breathe, you observe the reaction, and instead of becoming the reaction, you choose. You choose calm. You choose strength. You choose awareness. That small moment may seem insignificant, but it isn't, because you just interrupted an old pattern. You just practiced becoming someone new, and tomorrow, you may get another opportunity, and the next day, another. Eventually, what once required effort begins to become natural. You don't have to force it. You don't have to pretend. You have practiced it enough that it begins to feel like you. This is how a new identity is built. But there is one challenge. Your old identity will sometimes fight back. You may wake up, inspired, and 2 hours later, hear a voice inside saying, "Forget it. This won't work. You always give up. You're being unrealistic. You should start tomorrow." What's the point? That voice doesn't necessarily mean you are failing. It may simply be the familiar pattern asking you to return. And this is the moment where you have a choice. You can obey the old pattern, or you can observe it. You can say, "I see you. I know this thought. I know this feeling, but I don't have to become it." Take a breath. Return to your intention. Return to the person you are becoming. You do not need to win every battle. You simply need to stop automatically surrendering. Every time you notice the old pattern and choose differently, you create a new possibility. Every time you interrupt the automatic reaction, you create space. Every time you return to gratitude instead of complaint, you practice a new emotional state. Every time you choose courage instead of fear, you become slightly more familiar with courage. Every time you choose love instead of resentment, you become slightly more familiar with love. And, eventually, what was once unfamiliar becomes familiar. That is when change begins to feel natural. Now, think about the future you want. See it clearly. But don't just see the house. See the person inside the house. Don't just see the money. See the person who knows how to handle abundance responsibly. Don't just see the relationship. See the person who is emotionally available, loving, and secure. Don't just see the successful business. See the disciplined person who built it. Don't just see the healthy body. See the person who respects their body every day. The external vision matters, but the internal identity matters even more. Because if you become the person capable of living your dream, your decisions begin to change. And when your decisions change, your life begins to move in a different direction. There is another powerful question you can ask yourself every morning. What would the highest version of me do today? When you face a difficult conversation, ask it. When you feel like quitting, ask it. When you are tempted to return to an old habit, ask it. When fear tells you to stay small, ask it. When you have an opportunity to grow, ask it. What would the highest version of me do? You may not always know the answer immediately, but the question itself changes your perspective. Instead of asking, "What do I feel like doing?" you begin asking, "What kind of person am I choosing to become?" That is a completely different way of living. And remember this, you don't have to wait until you see evidence. You don't have to wait until everyone believes in you. You don't have to wait until the circumstances are perfect. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. Because if you only allow yourself to feel confident after success, you will always be dependent on success for confidence. If you only allow yourself to feel grateful after receiving, you will always be dependent on receiving for gratitude. If you only allow yourself to feel peaceful after everything is solved, peace will always be postponed. Instead, practice the state now. Practice gratitude now. Practice confidence now. Practice peace now. Practice love now. Not as denial of reality, but as a deliberate choice about who you want to be while moving through reality. Take another deep breath and imagine that the old version of you is standing behind you. You don't have to hate that person. That version of you did the best it could with what it knew. It survived. It learned. It protected you. It carried you this far. So, thank it. And then say, "I am ready to become more. I am ready to release what no longer serves me. I am ready to stop rehearsing the past. I am ready to think differently. I am ready to feel differently. I am ready to act differently. I am ready to become the person who can live the life I desire." And now, take one more breath. Because the future doesn't begin someday. It begins with the next thought, the next choice, the next action, the next moment you decide not to return to who you were. And perhaps, your greatest manifestation is not something you receive. Perhaps it is the moment you finally realize you are becoming the person you have been waiting for. And when that person begins to appear, your choices change, your actions change, your relationships change, your expectations change, your life begins to change. Not because you forced the world to become different, but because you became different within the world. And that is where your journey truly begins. Tomorrow morning, before you touch your phone, remember one question. Who am I choosing to be today? And then become that person. A Deep Manifestation Journey, Part 2. There is a moment in every transformation when you have to stop asking, "When will my life change?" and start asking, "When will I change the way I live my life?" Because the future you desire is not simply a place you arrive at. It is a version of you that you grow into, and every day gives you another opportunity to practice becoming that person. Think about the life you want. Not just the things you want to have, but the way you want to feel. Maybe you want freedom. Maybe you want peace. Maybe you want financial abundance. Maybe you want a loving relationship. Maybe you want confidence. Maybe you want to wake up with excitement instead of anxiety. Maybe you want to look at your life and finally feel, "I created this." Now ask yourself something deeper. If you already had that life, who would you be? How would you wake up? How would you speak to yourself? How would you walk into a room? How would you treat your body? How would you respond when something goes wrong? How would you handle money? How would you treat the people you love? What would you no longer worry about? What would you finally allow yourself to believe? This is the beginning of becoming. Close your eyes, take a slow breath in, and slowly breathe out. Again, breathe in and release. Allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your face to soften. Let the noise of the day become quieter. And now, imagine yourself several months from today. You are living a life that once felt distant. Look around. Where are you? What can you see? What can you hear? Who is around you? Notice the details. Don't rush. Allow the scene to become real in your imagination. Now look at yourself. Notice your face. Notice your posture. Notice your eyes. There is something different about you. You are calmer. You are stronger. You trust yourself. You don't need to chase everything. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need constant confirmation from the outside world. You have become comfortable with yourself. And then you realize something. The greatest change was not what happened around you. The greatest change was who you became. Feel that version of you. Don't simply watch them. Become them. Imagine what it feels like to wake up as that person. Feel the confidence. Feel the gratitude. Feel the peace. Feel the certainty. Feel the excitement. And now ask yourself, what would it feel like if this were already my life? Stay with that feeling. You don't have to force it. You don't have to make it dramatic. Simply allow yourself to experience the possibility. Because when you repeatedly imagine a different way of being, you give yourself a new internal reference point. Instead of always comparing the present to the past, you begin comparing the present to the person you are becoming. Now imagine walking through an ordinary day as your future self. You wake up, you stretch, you breathe, and before the world tells you who you should be, you decide. You decide how you will feel. You decide what you will focus on. You decide who you will be. You don't need the day to be perfect. You don't need everyone to behave exactly the way you want. You don't need every problem to disappear. You simply carry a different state into the day. And Because your state is different. Your responses are different. Someone says something that would normally trigger you. You pause. You breathe. And you choose. You don't react automatically. You respond consciously. That is power. This always happens to me. But the new you asks, what can I learn from this? You make a mistake. Someone doubts you. The old you might have felt the need to prove yourself, but the new you remembers, I know who I am becoming. You experience a setback. The old you attacks itself. The new you says, I am still learning. You experience uncertainty. The old you becomes afraid. The new you says, I don't need to know every step. I only need to take the next one. This is how your future self becomes real. Not through one perfect day, but through repeated choices. There will be moments when you feel the old identity returning. This is normal. You may have a morning when you wake up discouraged. You may have a day when nothing seems to be working. You may suddenly remember something from your past. You may feel fear. You may feel doubt. You may feel the urge to return to an old habit. And, in that moment, do not tell yourself that your transformation has failed. Instead, recognize what is happening. The old pattern is familiar. Your mind knows it. Your body knows it. Your emotional system knows it. You have practiced it many times. But familiarity does not mean destiny. A familiar thought is still only a thought. A familiar emotion is still only an emotion. And you are capable of choosing what comes next. Take a breath and say to yourself, this is the old me trying to return. I don't have to follow it. I can choose again. Then choose again. Choose the thought that supports your future. Choose the action that supports your future. Choose the emotion you want to practice. And move forward. You don't need to feel perfect before taking action. Sometimes the action comes first. Sometimes the feeling follows. Sometimes you have to behave like the person you are becoming before it feels completely natural. That is part of the process. Think about learning anything new. At first, it feels awkward. A new language, a new exercise, a new skill, a new habit, a new way of communicating. In the beginning, you have to think about everything. Eventually, you don't. Practice creates familiarity, and transformation works in a similar way. You practice being calm. You practice being disciplined. You practice being grateful. You practice thinking bigger. You practice responding instead of reacting. You practice trusting yourself. And eventually, those behaviors begin to feel more natural. The new identity becomes familiar. Now imagine your future self standing in front of you. Look at them. This person has already lived through many of the challenges you are currently facing. They know what you don't know yet. They understand what you cannot fully understand today. They have learned lessons you haven't learned yet. They have made decisions you haven't made yet. And they are looking back at you. Not with judgment, with compassion. They know how difficult the journey sometimes felt. They know how many times you wanted to give up. They know how many times you questioned yourself. But they also know something you may not know yet. You made it. You kept going. You learned. You changed. You became stronger. You became wiser. You became more conscious. And now, your future self asks you one question. Are you willing to become me? Take a breath and answer, yes, yes, even when it is uncomfortable. Yes, even when you cannot see the result yet. Yes, even when nobody else understands. Yes, even when the old version of you feels safer. Yes, because you know that staying exactly the same cannot create a completely different life. Now imagine your future self placing a hand on your shoulder and hear these words. You don't have to become me overnight. You only have to move in my direction, one decision at a time, one thought at a time, one day at a time. Keep going. You are closer than you think. Take a deep breath and let those words settle inside you. There is another important part of becoming your future self. You must learn to stop constantly looking for evidence that your dream is possible. Because if you need evidence before you believe, you will always be dependent on circumstances. Instead, practice believing in possibility before the evidence appears. Not blind belief, not denial, but possibility. The possibility that your life can change. The possibility that you can learn. The possibility that you can grow. The possibility that the person you are today is not the final version of you. That possibility is enough to begin. Think about the greatest changes in your life. They probably didn't happen all at once. A relationship began with one conversation. A career began with one decision. A business began with one idea. A journey began with one step. A new habit began with one repetition. Your transformation is the same. You don't need to know how the entire story ends. You only need to take the next step. And sometimes, the next step is very small. Drink the water. Go for the walk. Make the phone call. Write the idea down. Finish the task. Apologize. Forgive. Say no. Say yes. Get up. Try again. Go to sleep instead of scrolling. Spend 10 minutes learning. Spend 5 minutes meditating. Take one action that the future version of you would be proud of. Small actions become patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits become identity. And identity influences the life you create. So don't underestimate the small moments. The moment when you choose discipline over comfort. The moment when you choose patience over anger. The moment when you choose gratitude over complaint. The moment when you choose courage over fear. The moment when you choose possibility over limitation. Those moments are not insignificant. They are votes for the person you are becoming. Every choice is a vote. Every day, you are voting for an identity. The question is, who are you voting for? Now imagine waking up tomorrow morning. Before you touch your phone, sit quietly. Place your hand over your heart. Take a deep breath and say, today I choose my state. I choose my thoughts. I choose my responses. I choose who I am becoming. Then imagine your future. See it, feel it, and ask, what is one thing I can do today that my future self would do? Maybe you already know the answer. Don't ignore it. Do it. And as you move through your day, return to that question. When you are tired, what would my future self do? When you are afraid, what would my future self do? When you are tempted to quit, what would my future self do? When you are angry, what would my future self do? When you receive an opportunity, what would my future self do? When nobody is watching, what would my future self do? That last question matters, because transformation is not about how you appear to other people. It is about who you are when nobody is watching. Your future is built in private, in the decisions nobody sees, in the habits nobody applauds, in the moments when you choose to keep going, in the mornings when you get up anyway, in the evenings when you choose what serves you instead of what distracts you, in the thoughts you refuse to entertain, in the stories you stop repeating, in the boundaries you finally create, in the promises you make to yourself and keep. This is where identity changes. And perhaps one day, you will look back. You will remember the person you used to be. You will remember the fears, the doubts, the uncertainty, the old patterns, and you will realize, I don't think like that anymore. I don't react like that anymore. I don't live like that anymore. I don't see myself that way anymore. And you will understand something beautiful. The life you once imagined has become ordinary. The confidence you once wanted has become natural. The peace you once searched for has become familiar. The person you once visualized has become you. But don't wait for that day to feel grateful. Feel grateful now. Be grateful for the person you are becoming. Be grateful for the lessons. Be grateful for the opportunities. Be grateful for the chance to begin again. Be grateful that you are not trapped by yesterday. Be grateful that you can choose again. Every morning is another opportunity. Every breath is another opportunity. Every moment is another opportunity. You are never completely finished becoming. Now, take another deep breath and imagine all the old stories you've carried. The story that you are not enough. The story that you are too late. The story that you are unlucky. The story that things never work out. The story that you always fail. The story that you cannot change. Imagine placing those stories on the ground. You don't have to destroy them. You simply don't have to carry them anymore. Leave them there and step forward. Say to yourself, I release the identity that no longer serves me. I release the need to repeat the past. I release the belief that I must remain the same. I release the fear of becoming more. I release the need for everyone to understand my journey. I release the habit of waiting for permission. And I choose something new. I choose growth. I choose courage. I choose peace. I choose abundance. I choose love. I choose possibility. I choose myself. Now, imagine the life you desire one more time. See the people. See the places. See the experiences. See yourself living it. But this time, don't watch it from a distance. Step inside the scene. Look through your own eyes. Feel what you would feel. Hear what you would hear. Move through that life, as if you are already becoming the person who belongs there. Feel the gratitude. Feel the peace. Feel the confidence. Feel the freedom. And then say, I am becoming. Not someday. Not when everything changes. Not when someone gives me permission. Now. Your future does not require you to become perfect. It requires you to become intentional. You will still have difficult days. You will still make mistakes. You will still feel fear. You will still have moments of doubt. But the difference is, you no longer have to let those moments define you. You can experience fear and still move forward. You can experience doubt and still believe in possibility. You can experience failure and still choose growth. You can experience sadness and still know that your story is not over. You can fall back into an old pattern and choose again. That is strength. So if you take nothing else from this journey, remember this. Your past may explain you, but it does not have to define you. Your circumstances may influence you, but they do not have to control every decision you make. Your old identity may be familiar, but familiarity is not destiny. You can learn. You can change. You can grow. You can become. And perhaps the most powerful manifestation is not receiving something from the universe. Perhaps it is discovering that you were capable of becoming someone you once thought was impossible. The person who believes again. The person who gets back up. The person who trusts themselves. The person who stops living from fear. The person who stops asking for permission. The person who stops waiting for the perfect moment. The person who finally says, my life is worth creating. Take a deep breath. Slowly breathe in and breathe out. Let your shoulders relax. Let your mind become quiet. And repeat these words slowly. I am not my past. I am not my old patterns. I am not my fears. I am not my limitations. I am becoming. I am becoming more conscious. I am becoming more confident. I am becoming more peaceful. I am becoming more grateful. I am becoming more courageous. I am becoming more abundant. I am becoming the person I was meant to become. And every day, I move closer. Now imagine yourself tomorrow morning. You open your eyes. The day has not happened yet. The future is still open. And you have a choice. You can wake up and automatically become yesterday. Or you can wake up and consciously become someone new. Before you touch your phone, remember. Before you worry, remember. Before you react, remember. Before you say, this is just who I am, remember, you are allowed to choose again. And when you leave this video, don't try to change your entire life tonight. Choose one thing, one thought, one behavior, one habit, one decision, one action, and practice it. Tomorrow, practice it again. The next day, again, and again. Because one day, you will look back and realize that the life you are living today was built from the small choices you once thought didn't matter. They mattered, every one of them. So go forward. Walk into your life differently. Think differently. Speak differently. Choose differently. Feel differently. And when the old version of you whispers, "Come back," smile, take a breath, and say, "I remember who I am becoming." Then keep moving. The future is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to begin. The life you desire is not asking you to have every answer. It is asking you to take the next step, and the person you want to become is not somewhere far away. That person begins with the choice you make right now. So choose. Choose courage. Choose possibility. Choose love. Choose gratitude. Choose growth. Choose yourself. And become the person who already believes that your life can change. Because once you become that person, you will begin to see possibilities you could not see before. You will make choices you would not have made before. You will walk through doors you once walked past. You will recognize opportunities you once ignored. And slowly, quietly, one day at a time, your outer life may begin to reflect the transformation that started within. Take one final breath. Close your eyes and imagine your future self looking back at you. They smile because they know. They know the journey was worth it. They know the uncertainty was worth it. They know the difficult days were worth it. And they say, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Because that future version of you is waiting for you to become them. Not tomorrow, not someday, but one choice at a time, one thought at a time, one breath at a time, one day at a time. Become the person who already has it. Become the person who already believes. Become the person who already lives from possibility. And then, let your life catch up. You are becoming. You are changing. You are creating. And your next chapter begins now. Thank you for giving yourself this time to listen, to breathe, and to believe. I truly hope you find whatever your heart is searching for, and I wish you happiness in every form. Love, peace, abundance, and beautiful moments you never saw coming. May everything you are hoping for find its way to you. Take care of yourself, and remember, beautiful things are still ahead.